Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Enneagram in a Movie podcast. I am Mario Sikora, and I am here with TJ Dawe and TJ Ingrassia, and we were going to be talking about the movie Witness. It was Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis, and talking about the Preserving One. Guys, I've been looking forward to this movie, so I'm going to ask TJ Ingrassia, since this is your first time watching this movie, your reaction to the movie.
So many thoughts and feelings. This is a man after my own heart. This is a people after my own heart. And it's been on my list for a long time to see. I had to double check to make sure. I could not believe Harrison Ford's only Academy Award nomination.
Really? He didn't get it for The Fugitive?
No, apparently
Tommy
not.
Lee Jones did, yeah.
Yeah, which seems crazy.
Yeah.
But much deserved. I don't know who won in 86. I can't remember. I have to look that up. But anyway, just great movie.
Uh-huh. Good. TJ Dawe, how about you? What's your experience with this movie?
Loved it. I hadn't seen this in a good number of years, so I remember vividly when it was in the theaters, because that was 1985, and I can't remember what time of year it came out, but I would have been either 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. I was a massive Harrison Ford fan from Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and when my parents rented this on video, I watched it with them, and this was not that.
No, it was
something
not.
We'll get to later. Anyway, so I watched it as an adult decades ago, barely remember it, and it was a joy to watch it again.
Yeah.
It really holds up, apart from the music, which is pretty dated, but
you know, I couldn't help but think of kind of off-brand Vangelis for the soundtrack for this. It was Maurice.
It's got
Jarman.
that 1980s synth feel. And it was William Hurt who won for Kiss of the Spider Woman in the 86 Oscars.
There you go. I never saw that. So before I give my thoughts on the movie, TJ Dawe, how about giving us the synopsis of the film?
You bet. So Witness tells the story of John Book, who's a Philadelphia police officer. Mario, I don't know if you noticed this, but some of this movie takes place in Philadelphia.
I know all of these locations, man, but we'll get into that. Yeah.
Maybe we will, yeah. So John Book's a Philadelphia homicide detective. He is played by Harrison Ford, and he investigates the murder of an undercover cop. And the sole witness for the murder is a little Amish boy called Samuel, played by Lucas Haas. The investigation uncovers police corruption, which puts Samuel's life in danger, and his mother Rachel, played by Kelly McGillis, and Harrison Ford, or rather John Book. And they hide out at Samuel and Rachel's family farm in rural Pennsylvania, Lancaster County, which is full of Amish people apparently. John Book recovers from a bullet wound there. He helps out on the farm. He develops an attraction to Rachel and vice versa, and then he tries to figure out what he can do and how to bring his corrupt superior to justice. Well, that corrupt superior ends up finding him, and he and two other cops raid the farm. Book is able to overcome them. The problem is solved, and he leaves the farm and the community and leaves Rachel behind.
Yeah. So I am a huge fan of this movie. I saw it in the theater when it came out, and this was... At this point, so I am a native of Philadelphia. Okay, so I grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs. At this period, I was living in the city and spent a good chunk of my adult life living in the city. And this came out a year or so after or before, I don't recall, Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, which is another very Philadelphia movie, as is Blowout with John Travolta. So this is a time when I was first living in the city, and it was kind of a gritty place, right? I mean, there's a big contrast between the scenes in Philadelphia and the scenes out in Lancaster County. By the way, and this is one thing I couldn't help notice, since we are talking about ones, my inner one was out for this movie and picking up all these little things. For example, the pronunciation of Lancaster. So in this area, it's Lancaster, right, and not Lancaster, or that sort of thing. There are a bunch of things that I'll bring up as we go, but I am a huge Peter Weir fan, and this was peak Peter Weir time. I mean, he had done, let's see, Year of Living Dangerously in 1982, Witness 1985. Mosquito Coast, Dead Poets Society, Green Card, Fearless, The Truman Show, and then into 2003, Master and Commander, and then The Way Back was his last movie. Beautiful scenery. I'm curious, TJ Ingrassia, you being the videographer here, I'm curious about your thoughts on the cinematography of this movie.
Well, it looked great, but unfortunately, I get a lot of movies from the library just down the street from my house, and I wanted to get so that I could watch it multiple times and check things. Unfortunately, they only had a copy on DVD, and so I've got my giant 4K TV playing this pathetic DVD version of this movie. I intend to purchase the 4K so that I can watch it again and fully appreciate the beautiful landscape cinematography.
Yeah, Peter Weir does these. There are these loving shots of wheat fields, right, and the wind blowing through the wheat fields, and there are these beautiful shots of the Amish off in the horizon doing their Amish stuff, and when they're walking to the funeral in the beginning, you see them coming up over this rolling hill as if they're appearing out of this wheat field. Really, really fantastic. And I was reading that much of the indoor scenery was based on a Vermeer exhibit that Weir had seen in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, where the Rocky Steps are, right prior to starting to make the movie. And so this kind of inspired the look of all the interior shots, particularly when he was sick and recovering from the bullet shot, the gunshot. So beautiful, beautiful movie. And locations near and dear to my heart. So, like I said, I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and I know this area quite well, the Lancaster County, and, that's what it looked like then. That's what it was like. You would get stuck in traffic behind the Amish buggies, like happened there. I think a lot of it was actually filmed in a town called Intercourse, Pennsylvania, which, we're talking about ones, we're going to talk a bit about repression and how some of that comes out. So it just thrills everybody that there's a town called Intercourse right in the heart of Amish country in Lancaster County. And the town next door to it is called Bird in Hand, and which you can let your imagination wander too, especially when you're a 14 or 15-year-old boy, right? So anyway, I love this movie. Thrilled to be talking about it. A couple of things. Let's see, shot and location there. It was a very profitable movie, right? I think it was made for about $7 million, made $111 million at the box office. It was really good. Some interest, it was Viggo Mortensen's first film role.
Several people in this movie, I'm like, is that guy? I think that's that guy. And all of them turned out to be that guy that I had in mind.
Yeah. There's an evil Danny Glover, which is kind of cool to see, right? Because I always think of him as kind of the warm and friendly guy from the Lethal Weapon movies. And Alexander Goodenough was in this movie.
So when I saw Daniel, I thought, man, he looks a whole heck of a lot like a bad guy from a Die Hard movie or something. And then I looked it up, and sure enough, he's the bad guy from Die Hard.
That's what he was. But do you know who he was besides that, TJ?
I do not.
Oh, TJ Dawe, do you?
Oh, yes. He was the pitch man for a very popular series of beer commercials in Canada in the early 90s, back when ice beer was the trend. Either of you remember that? Or was that just a Canadian thing?
That must have been just a Canadian thing. So Alexander Goodenough was?
There was a couple of years where every major brand of beer that I was aware of, right as I was in my early college years, that was the newest trend, ice beer. And it's been cold filtered. It's not heat pasteurized, as if it ever having been warmed up affects how you drink it when it's been cooled. So there was a series of Labatt ice commercials, and he was the guy.
Well, that's
I know him from that even better than from Die Hard.
Wow. And well, if we go back even further, he was a famous ballet star. So he was he defected from the Soviet Union right after Baryshnikov did, and it was a very famous event when he defected from the Soviet Union. He danced with Baryshnikov, and then they had a falling out and kind of went their own ways. And he ended up drinking himself to death and died at 46. So it's appropriate that he was a beer pitchman, because he clearly loved his alcohol. Yeah, so a troubled guy, but a brilliant ballet dancer and quite the international figure back in the day.
His long, blonde, flowing locks stood out a bit from the other Amish people in the movie.
Yes, he did. All right. So let's see here. So any other tidbits about the movie before we start talking about what's one-ish about it? No? Okay. All right. So we'll hop into this. So, all right. What is one-ish about? We're going to talk about the movie, and we're going to talk about the character, John Book, okay? Because I don't think you can ignore either one of these.
Well, first of all, let's start there. Even just the name, John Book, is a little bit on the nose. It's like if there was an 8 and his last name was Powerhouse or something like that. Like
John Fist.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Not subtle.
Yeah. I mean, I put that down in my notes too. It's like, geez, that name just sounds so one-ish. Okay, I don't know what else jumps out as one-ish for you guys.
Well, there's Amish culture in general.
Yeah,
like the majority of this movie takes place in Amish country, and right from the start, we see just how stripped down their lives are. This is something most of us know about the Amish, but it's interesting to spend a movie with them, really to see it in action. Of like no modern technology, no motor vehicles, no telephones, no electric farm equipment. Everything on the farm is done by hand, building, harvesting, planting, repairing, everything like that. Mm-hmm. Their clothes are very spare. Their biggest compliment for each other is plain.
Yeah. You look very plain, Book.
Yeah, and that's meant to be a good thing.
Yeah.
And they don't even have buttons. That's mentioned specifically. Buttons, I can't remember what the term is for.
They're a mark of pride.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They they have a specific Hochmut.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so it's like in the Low German.
Yes.
Of like, this is to be avoided.
Yes. Yes.
Like, it's proud, it's shining. So you got both one and preserving there.
Well, that's the thing with this movie in particular, and when we start talking about the instinctual biases and the types, there's just this overlap with some of them. And the preserving instinctual bias in the type 1 is an example of that, right? Because there's a lot here you could say is one-ish, but it's also preserving. A lot of those things you mentioned, TJ, could be that. So it's almost impossible to pull out in this movie what is preserving and what is one and just say it's all just screams preserving one, right? Mm-hmm. TJ Ingrassia, are we going to add to that?
Yeah, pretty much I agree with all that. What I wrote down was, for the Amish culture being one-ish, hard work, self-sacrifice, and repression.
Yes.
So maybe most of the stuff that TJ mentioned would fit comfortably in the preserving bucket, also the one bucket, but I think the repression really hits the bullseye for type 1. Yeah. Speaking from personal experience anyway.
Well, this is there's a couple of themes going on here in this movie that I think relate to oneness and preserving to some extent. But the first one, I would say, is this repression. Right. This is a movie about repression in many, many ways. And a Book and the Kelly McGillis character, I'm sorry. Rachel, thank you. A great biblical name. Dealing with their lust for each other and trying to contain it. And there's even the point where they have this eye contact toward the end when she is bathing. With her skirt on, by the way, which was interesting. And they just have this moment, where they're just staring at each other. And he says afterwards, Rachel, if I had made love to you last night, either I would have had to stay or you would have had to leave. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking, why?
Because they would have broken the rules.
Yeah, spoken like an 8.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, boy, what a one-ish thing to say. That's what? There's a rule book for these kind of things, come on. So,
there's a rule book for everything, Mario.
Well, the other theme that caught me was that they both had their own codes, right? So it was this clash of two one-ish codes, but with different rules in them, bumping up against each other. And this goes to show you how we tend to think that ones know what the rules are, right? They really understand it. They have some kind of like direct download from, the moral universe. Not necessarily, right? For what the one is doing is creating this system of rules to give them some sense of certainty. And they can be clashing, right? So the rules of the one can go against what society deems as appropriate, right? And this is just a case where it's two different sets of rules clashing up against each other in a really interesting way.
Mm-hmm. And I had a note here. So there's the scene where the chief of police, who's involved in this dirty cop business, is interrogating John's partner. And he says, he's talking about John needs to come back in because John has broken those rules of the police club. And so even there in the police world, now, this is part of John's code, is that even though he might be breaking the police rules in the sense of like, whatever, we protect our own, circle the wagons, he's going to do the right thing. He's got his own version of what those rules should be.
Yeah.
Point to all of this too is a very brief moment when they're still in Philadelphia and John and Rachel and Samuel sit down at a restaurant. He has 3 hot dogs and John takes a bite of his immediately and then notices that Rachel and Samuel pause in silent prayer before touching theirs. And he pauses mid-chew and just waits.
Yes.
And it's a silent prayer. Who knows how long it'll last? But he's respectful. He's aware that it's different. He's not like, that's bullshit. He's like, I'll just wait. Probably won't be long. And he's right. It isn't long. Right. And then they start eating and he keeps chewing.
Yeah.
But it's like, these are their standards.
Yes.
These are his.
As long as we're on the Philadelphia segment of the film, I thought it was funny, maybe a bit unrealistic, that he's just driving around these seedy parts of Philadelphia with these 2 Amish people in the background. Here, hang out in the car. We're going to go into this bar filled with all these antagonistic guys, wrestle with this guy out to the car. Hey, is this the right guy? Somehow I don't know that they would actually do that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And the thing about that scene that I kind of struggled with, after he smashes that guy's face into the window of the car and then says, hey, sorry, made a mistake. And the guy's just kind of laughing it off. And all the guys are going into the bar chuckling about just getting rousted by this cop. I'm thinking, yeah, these guys never really been to Philadelphia, man, because that ain't the way it works, so. All right. So there were a few things, and I'm going to just do a little nitpicking here, okay, and then I want to get back to what's one-ish about this movie. But
I'd say that's a pretty one-ish activity itself.
It's our favorite.
Yeah, well, that's, so I do think it fits, okay? So there's a couple of things, right? So number one, the bathroom in 30th Street Station. Now, 30th Street Station, where the train station is, where they're waiting and they see the murder, is one of the most beautiful interior spaces in the United States, at least that I have been to. It is a spectacular building, and if you have not been to that train station, you ever get the opportunity, I encourage you to stop by and watch it. I've been there many, many times. That's not the bathroom. That's clearly a set. And the reason I know that, because back at that time when I used to go through that train station a lot, they did not have doors on the booths. Because they had to take them off to discourage, shall we say, misbehavior amongst people. So so poor little Samuel would have had a real problem because there was no doors on those bathrooms. Let's see what else.
Shorter movie.
And certainly a much shorter movie. Yeah, it would have been Dead Witness. All right, so let's see. The fact that Harrison Ford was supposed to be a captain in the police. No, a captain is a pretty senior officer, and that's somebody who's high in management in the police department, not a detective out in the streets. And no way would he be partnered with a sergeant. There's some timeline things about how quickly he recovers from the bullet wound, and also I would call him Boris Godunov. Alexander Godunov's character He wasn't Daniel. Thank you. He wasn't wasting time to go after
like
after
at
her.
the funeral.
At the funeral,
He's making moves, man.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, it's a little quick, and she seemed to be recovering pretty quickly. Let's see here. The Amish don't speak classic German. There was a lot of like kind of standard German. They actually have a particular dialect, and the swing scene with her and Daniel. She's wearing makeup. I mean, you can see that she's got makeup on, right? And I'm thinking, okay, where'd this come from, right? So,
yeah, Kelly McGillis looks like no other Amish woman I've ever seen in my life. Not to disparage, Amish preferences, but clearly she's been assisted in this film.
Yeah, be careful, and please let's not alienate our Amish listeners here. So,
I guess by definition they're not listening, so we're safe, I think.
So that area again is beautiful. It has changed dramatically. My son plays regular basketball tournaments out there, so we're there fairly regularly, and it is a complete tourist area now, and which is interesting because that was one of the themes of the tourists, sneaking pictures of them and all that sort of stuff. Now there are these billboards everywhere. Visit a genuine Amish farm. See how the Amish live, and they have really turned that into a big tourist area. And in fact, last time I stayed out there, we checked into this hotel, and they had a sign on the door. I forget what kind of hotel it was. It was a mid-range, pretty nice place, but not, overly. And the sign said, "We do not rent to locals." Right. And so as we're checking in, I said to the clerk, I said, "Why don't you rent to locals?" And she said, "Well, we're a family tourist area. And when we rent to the locals, they have parties and they get drunk and they make a lot of noise and start fights and stuff. And so we just don't rent to them." Okay, so it's a pure tourist area these
Keep
days.
the Philadelphia riffraff out of
Exactly
the county.
Right. Yeah. So
she wasn't referring to the Amish.
No, she was not referring to the Amish. She was because there's it's not all Amish that live there, right? So, but yeah. So anyway, so a few nitpicks, but if I wasn't wearing my one hat, I wouldn't have noticed any of that stuff because I just enjoyed the movie too much. Another thing that we see is. Let's see. First, I'm going to talk about the movie in general and the Amish, and then I want to talk about John Book. You see a nice connection to the point 7 in this movie, right? So even the Amish guys, they have this kind of bawdy sense of humor, right? So there's the scene at the funeral where they're talking about how the dead husband, was a nice guy, but he wasn't much for, buying horses or something, and they talk about the horse's testicle, and they all start laughing about that. And then there's the scene where Eli is teaching John Book to milk a cow, and he says, "What, have you never, held a teat before?" And he says, "Not that big." And Eli looks at him for a second, then bursts into laughter, right? And so, and there's that kind of zaniness, like when they're having the meal, and he's on the chair with wheels, and he just zips across the kitchen, without getting up, and then zips back, and Book is looking at him. So you see this dynamic with the point 7. When they're kind of relaxed and they're expressing that 7-ness in a nice way, but there's also all this repression going on, okay, which is the challenge that the one has of repressing this, striving to feel excited. Thoughts on that?
Well,
I can't relate to that at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you have one of those chairs with wheels on it, TJ?
I know, but I should get one. It's a good idea.
That scene when he laughs at the joke about having his hand on a teat before, that's a roar of laughter.
Yeah.
Eli reacts as if that is literally the funniest thing he has ever heard and maybe the greatest moment of pleasure he's ever had. And I love how that flies in the face of one-dimensional stereotypes of ones, which often happen in comedy movies where the one is the blustering authority figure who has no sense of humor whatsoever and is frustrated with the 7 protagonists or fraternity of protagonists who want to do nothing but misbehave and make merry and harumph. Whereas in actual life, and my mother and sister are both preserving ones. I don't think I've ever met a one who didn't love a good laugh. They don't build a temple to that in their lives. They don't necessarily lead with that. But if the moment is right, they will open up and let that laughter right in and out. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I completely agree. That is the stereotype of the one, that they're humorless. We think of, again, kind of the Puritans when we think of the ones, but that's not my experience either. Heck, TJ, I've even seen TJ Ingrassia here smile on occasion. Right? So,
Don't tell anyone.
I don't know. TJ Ingrassia, let's hear from you as a one on this issue of humor and the stereotype of the one.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I mean, I think humor has always been an important thing for me. And I think to think of it in one-ish terms, I think it's a way for me to have that outlet. You can only repress the energy so long. It's going to come out. It's going to come out somewhere in your life. And so it's sort of like an escape valve.
Yes.
And I found I even like to push the envelope on the edge of like appropriateness or dark humor. Mm-hmm. And I think it's I'm not consciously thinking of this as I do it, but I think it's a subconscious way of me of like, I get to be a little bit bad in this moment. I get to make the joke that maybe no one else will make and see what happens. It's a little bit dangerous, but it's also kind of safe. So it's a good outlet.
Yeah, this is the trick for once, right? Is to have that outlet and to manage it and not to repress it too much. And this is when the one really gets into trouble. And I have this kind of ongoing line that I use when I'm talking about this 1-7 connection, that if the one doesn't learn to manage it and enjoy themselves and realize that enjoyment in life is fun, they end up like the TV preacher down at the hotel by the airport with a couple of hookers and an 8-ball, right? Or tapping somebody's foot in the John at the Minneapolis airport or something. So they really have to, just be careful and allow themselves to be human. And part of that is to be funny and enjoy life and all these other things.
And to break the rules on occasion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see. So any other general oneness about the movie before we talk about John Book?
Well, just to lean on the 1-7 connection, a slightly different version of that is the scene when he's working on his car and gets the battery to work and the radio plays a Sam Cooke song and he leads Rachel in this spontaneous dance in the barn.
Yeah.
So this isn't humor, although she is laughing. She's delighted. She has clearly never danced before. Or maybe observed dancing.
Or listen to music, for that matter.
Listen to recorded music, yeah. And that's something her father scolds her for specifically. I mean, I don't speak German, but that's, I think, his big complaint when he walks in on them is the music.
Yeah.
But that is a damn good song. It is. I mean, I love Sam Cooke anyway. I mean, that's just a great, infectious, easy-to-get song. It's fun to see John Book and, hand in hand with that, Harrison Ford singing and dancing and being playful. It's hard not to get caught up in that. And you see just what a tonic it is to both of them of like, look at this. Look at us cutting loose for the length of 1 3-minute song, having this flirtatious dance.
Yeah. I hate to burst your bubble here a little bit, but it was not the Sam Cooke version. They weren't able to get the rights to the Sam Cooke version, so they had to do kind of an off-brand version of What a Wonderful World.
Well, that's just not right.
It's not right. It's yeah, but agreed. And that's another great scene where, again, they do that kind of, just enjoy themselves and break into that. And we see that a few places throughout this. And Book has a sense of humor, right? I mean, he laughs about things. Look, nobody seethes better than Harrison Ford, right? I mean, Harrison Ford just bristles with anger and fury, unexpressed anger and fury, or barely, or restrained anger and fury better than anybody. But he also had this lightness to him throughout that was really nice and appealing.
Just another minor moment that just struck me is the first time Rachel brings him a glass of lemonade. He drinks it in one long gulp, and she looks kind of astonished of like, what is this? To be so immoderate in drinking a glass of lemonade all in one go. She doesn't say anything. You don't get the sense he recognizes that she noticed.
That's interesting because I saw that look on her face as just pure lust, right? I mean, for me, it was like she's watching this sweaty, gorgeous man, gulping down this lemonade, like, with just some sort of unrestrained joy. And as it's dribbling down his neck, she's almost beside herself with desire, I thought. So.
Yeah, that's kind of the sense I got. And there's this theme running through the film of these competing love interests between John Book and Daniel, the Amish man who's chasing Rachel at her husband's funeral, and sort of the differences between them. And that's, I kind of picked up on that vibe, Mario, that like the unspoken thing is like Daniel would never drink a glass of lemonade in this manner.
In fact, when they're on the swing and he's sipping it demurely, and that's, and then she goes and takes it to John afterwards, right? And he drinks it completely differently than she does, or than that Daniel did. So, all right.
It was of minor interest to me that the Amish drink lemonade and coffee. Like, clearly both of those crops are from other climates. They're not growing those.
Well, they do buy things, TJ. I mean, they're not completely self-sufficient. Yeah.
But still, that they would allow that. That wouldn't be considered an indulgence. That was like, no, not buttons, that's too much. But lemonade and coffee, bring it on.
Well, I think lemonade you can make yourself, right? I mean, it's just lemons and water and sugar, and so I'm sure it was homemade lemonade.
But the sugar, that's the key ingredient.
Exactly. Unless it's unsweetened lemonade, they don't specify that.
There are weird rules with the Amish that I don't fully understand. Okay, so again, I'm from the area, so I'm familiar with this, and I've seen them. They, famously don't drive cars. They use buggies, but it's okay to use a truck to take your goods to the market, right? So there's a place in Philadelphia called the Reading Terminal Market where a good section of it is Amish stands, and they pull up in these big panel trucks all the time with their stuff, right? So there's times when you're allowed to do it and other times when you don't. And they also have the Rumspringa. Do you guys know what that is? The Rumspringa?
Yeah, it's not touched on in this movie in the slightest.
No. But go. You want to explain what that is, TJ?
Yeah. So the men, when they come of age, before they get married and settle down, are allowed, I think, just a year of living.
I think it's 2 years actually.
2 years. Okay, outside the community and satisfying their every indulgence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's basically you turn 18. And you get to make the choice, right? You get to go out among them English if you choose and do whatever. And you come back if you're so inclined. And if not, you go out into the world and that's on you. There's a famous story here. Not a story, it was a real thing that happened. So the name Stoltzfus pops up in this movie. It's an exceptionally common Amish name. Right, there's like half of the Amish people are named Stoltzfus, and half of those men have the first name of Abner. So you can't go to Amish country and throw a stick without hitting an Abner Stoltzfus. Okay, and so there were these two men on Rumspringa years ago, and they opened a meth lab. Okay. And we're selling meth, out of this meth lab, and they were both named Abner Stoltzfus, right? So there were these newspaper stories that Abner Stoltzfus, 18, and Abner Stoltzfus, 19, were arrested today. This thing. So anyway, it's this option again. It gets to this 1-7 thing, right? Go get it out of your system. Do what you need to do, and then come back, and everything will be fine.
So, Mario, do you know if you join the Amish community in middle age, do they then give you the 2 years for free? Is that on the table, possibly?
I don't know if you're allowed to join, right? I mean, I don't know if the book is open, for joining an Amish community or not. That's an interesting question.
I'll have to look into that.
Have you seen the TV show? Oh shoot.
Well, just to throw this in, supposedly the vast majority of Amish men on Rumspringa go back.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Supposedly it's very uncommon for them to say, this is awesome. This is so much fun.
Yeah.
Why would I ever deprive myself of this? It's like, that's enough. And I'll go back.
Yeah. Okay, so John Book. What's one-ish about John Book? Anything come to mind?
Just one or two things, maybe.
Yeah.
Like his first line, for instance,
Which was what?
is, hold on, let me find it. Move these people back. They shouldn't be this close. Get Schaefer on the phone. We need him here now.
Yeah.
So the word should, I didn't come up with this, but other Enneagram teachers have said this, and I think it's a good insight. Somebody who uses the word should a lot, that's a good indication that they very well might be a 1.
Yeah.
John Book is all about focusing on what's right and the fact that he's a person of integrity. As I was watching this at one point, it occurred to me, if you copied and pasted Gregory Peck and put him in this role, it wouldn't change a thing.
Right.
Still have that sense of like great morality. So when his supervisor tries to find him through Book's sister and tells him that he's corrupt and that's why we need to find him, that's when she knows. It's like, oh, okay, you're bullshitting me. If you knew anything about John, you'd know that's not true.
Exactly. Yeah, she says anybody that knows John would know that's not true. Right? Do you remember what else she said about him through Rachel? Rachel says the sister said?
She says she thinks you like policing because you think you're right about everything and you're the only one who can do anything. None of the other police know a crook from a bag of elbows.
Which is what he says when he's drunk on beer.
Yes.
That's almost a cartoonish vision of a drunk one of like, what do? They fixate on how not right everybody else is. Like the other cops, the other rule upholders.
Yeah.
Not enough integrity.
Yeah. There's also this I'm coming to get you sort of thing. There's the ice cream scene where he beats up the local in the trucker hat. He's getting out of the buggy, and Eli says to him, "It is not our way." And he says, "But it is mine." Right? So it's just, he's got this code, and he is going to stand up and do what is right and beat the heck out of this guy.
I wrote down righteous rage.
Yes. Yes.
And that doesn't come out of nowhere. He has just discovered that his police partner has been murdered.
Yes.
So his stress has gone way up in that moment. He might have been able to restrain himself if he hadn't had that phone call.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
Yeah,
he doesn't enjoy beating the shit out of those guys. He's got that look of grim determination of like, this is what's right. I'm meting out God's punishment.
He may not have enjoyed it, but he was clearly letting off some steam, right? I mean, so it was like, I need a workout here, kind of thing. But there was also earlier when they go into town and the woman goes to take his picture, and he says to her, "Lady, if you take my picture, I'm going to rip off your brassiere and strangle you with it." Like, wow, that's exceptionally vivid right there.
Well, also the climax of the movie, just to get to that, is that Schaefer and the 2 other corrupt cops come to get him on the farm. He takes out 2 guys, and in the end, Schaefer has the advantage. He's got Book at gunpoint, and Samuel, the boy, has rung the bell. Men and women have come from nearby farms. There's about a dozen people there watching, and that's when Book scolds Schaefer into surrender. Yeah, that's one of the great moments I've ever seen, much less one-ishness as the climax to a movie.
Yes.
Just tells him off. What are you going to do? Kill me? Kill the boy? Kill the woman? Kill all of us? It's over. Enough. And unarmed, he just walks up and takes his gun away. And the force of his righteousness is so strong that Schaefer just lets it happen. Yeah. As he strips him of his badge, and then he just meekly turns around and gets on his knees to allow himself to be cuffed, and that's that.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because just a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about Harrison Ford as a preserving 5. And now we're talking about him as this very different character. I mean, you can see some overlap, but again, this just has this fury in this character that the character in Shrinking does not. Okay. So yeah, again, Harrison Ford, boy, he really nails this character.
Yeah. Another thing that I wrote down sort of in that same vein is the scene where Samuel discovers his gun in the chest and he's touching it and putting his finger on the trigger. And I'm thinking, oh my God, no, don't put your finger there. And then you just hear from the side, what does he say? He says, "Don't move," and he screams it at this boy.
Yes.
But you can tell, and this is like, that might have been the moment that I connected to most in this film, is that he's not angry at him.
Yes.
He's actually yelling at him out of love and concern and protection. Yeah. I have to get your attention, stop what you're doing, and then he very gently comes over, he talks to him, he takes the bullets out, then he lets him handle the gun, and he explains it to him. So it's like this, it's connected to but different from the righteous rage. It's like, I'm going to use my authority to prevent something bad from happening, but then affirm to you, you're not in trouble. I'm not mad at you. We're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. I took the bullets out now. You can play with the gun.
And then when Rachel walks in, he doesn't just snatch it and stuff it away.
Yeah.
Like, he knows she needs to see this. This is what's going on. It's not good for us to keep secrets from her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as the film progresses, he allows her to take the gun and hide it. I think later he's going to go back into town, so he needs the gun again. He takes it, and then when he comes back to the house, he gives it back to her. Yeah. He's essentially saying, "This is your home. You've set the rules. I'm going to follow your rules. Here you go."
Yeah.
And that's immediately after that incident with Samuel. Because when Rachel catches him, she scolds him and says, "When you live under our house, you must respect our rules." He immediately gives her the gun.
Yes.
He just doesn't dispute. He doesn't justify. He just gets it. Yes, this is right. Yeah. These are their morals. This is their hospitality. Here.
The gun of the hand.
That scene between the grandfather and the grandson when he's talking about the significance of guns.
Yeah.
A beautiful one scene.
Yeah, and it's because he asks him if he would kill a man, and he says only bad men, and so he started, well, how do you know what's in their heart, right? And so it is a really good conversation on kind of moral philosophy and how we know what is right and what is not, and who are we to judge. Okay, which is very interesting from a one-ish perspective, right? So,
and from a one-ish Amish perspective,
yes, and you know, for when I talk about the one, the core quality of the one is objectivity. Okay? So objectivity is being able to make clear-sighted and unemotional and unfiltered and unbiased decisions about things, to see things. And that's a great example of it, I think, because the distortion of that, the one-ish sort of, trap, is to think, no, I know the rules and people have to follow them perfectly. And he's kind of challenging him there and saying, no, you don't really know the rules here. You got to step back and not assume that you know everything and that you are the judge. Now, of course, that's not consistent throughout the movie, right? Because he is talking to Rachel about, people are talking and I'm going to have to shun you, and you know what that means. I can't do this, I can't do that, etc. So there is this judgmentalism for sure. But so that was an interesting mixture to me. So let's talk about preserving. Okay, go ahead, TJ.
One quick more thing to say about John Book being a one. To bring back the whole Gregory Peck thing, his relationship with Samuel is really touching and appropriate. Like, I can imagine a lot of people, if, say, To Kill a Mockingbird is their favorite movie or favorite book, they can imagine what would it be like to have Atticus Finch as the good father. And even though he doesn't pretend he's a father to Samuel, initially he's in an incredibly stressful situation. You witnessed a murder. You've probably never been in a car in your life. You've never been in mortal danger. And he talks to him with gentleness and care. And TJ, as you points out, when he finds him holding his gun, he freaks out, but again, in a gentle, caring way. So he just oozes integrity in terms of, like, I want you to be okay. I want to make sure that you pick the right witness. When he's certainly never encountered a two-way mirror before, he has to explain what that is. Yeah. Let's make sure you feel safe. Let's make sure you pick the right person. All of that. Yeah. It's a really great dynamic to the one-ishness we see in that character. Again, like, it's not just the righteousness of an Old Testament prophet. There's this really human love and gentleness in there too. Yeah. Preserving.
boy, where do you start, right? I mean, everything about this movie is preserving. When we talk about preserving, the reason we don't use self-preservation is because it's not just about preserving the self. It's not just about me and my physical well-being, but it's the preservation of things in general, traditions. Okay? For example, storing things, keeping things that we need, and so forth. And the Amish tradition is really all about tradition, right? I mean, it's holding on to a pretty old way of being in the world. And we see this throughout. I mean, there's even that scene where she's in the kitchen writing on the labels of the peaches that she's preserving. Okay, I mean, you could just go on and on. There's the whole barn raising scene. And, Harrison Ford was a carpenter.
I was going to ask, do you think that's coincidental? Do you think they added some of that element to the movie because he's, literally good with his hands with a piece of wood?
That's interesting. I doubt it.
Or just serendipitous?
Yeah, I probably. I mean, it's a great question. I don't have an answer to. But barn raising is a kind of a big tradition with the Amish, and it really is a great example to, further the movie along. I imagine they could have faked it to some extent, right? But it's clear that he knew what he was doing with tools, right? I mean, he's even up there, banging in a peg with his left hand and the hammer, so it's kind of like a flex move, I could do this with either hand, sort of thing. And when he's drilling that hole with the hand drill, whatever that's called, and Daniel's sitting there watching, I'm like, oh, geez, I don't stand a chance against this guy, I mean, look at him go, so look at this guy drill. I can't compete with that.
Or at least maybe a more generous thing he might have been thinking was, okay, this guy's the real thing.
Yeah, yes. And
I think there is a moment where they're watching Harrison Ford, whatever, hammer or drill, whatever he's doing. And I think Daniel looks at a couple of the other Amish guys, and there's sort of this look between them like, okay, he's legit.
Yes, exactly right. And at the end, they all come up to him, and they're friendly and warm to him, and it's out of respect for his work ethic and what he did. He fixes the car, right? So he's hands on with that.
He makes this toy for Samuel. This is like partway through the movie. Eli tells him, you've recovered from your gunshot wound, and then you can help me on my farm. So he starts doing farm labor. And in his spare time, he fixes his car, he fixes the birdhouse that he crashes into, and then we find out later he made this elaborate toy, which any finishing carpenter would be proud to have made. This series of ramps and wheels that you let a little ball bearing run down. Yeah. And it's perfectly innocent, functional, nothing any Amish person would object to. And it's beautiful and fine-tuned and sanded and just incredible.
Yeah. And she comments on his carpentry at one point, and she says, "Are you good at anything else?" And he says, "Well, I'm good at whacking." So,
which is after she'd scolded him.
Yes, for whacking people.
May have been a double entendre there. I'm not sure.
All right,
but that barn raising scene goes on for longer than it needs to, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like if they just wanted to communicate the plot function of John Book is getting along just fine amongst the Amish, they could have done a much more truncated version of that scene or just left it out altogether, just in terms of he's doing this carpentry, he's helping around the farm.
Yeah.
That barn raising scene is such a good preserving scene in terms of how do we do this?
Yeah.
With hand tools and with everybody contributing. At one point, once the framework of the barn is up, I paused the movie and counted. There's like 24 guys monkeying around at different heights. Everybody's got tools. Everybody's working. Nobody's waiting to be told what to do. Nobody's shirking their duties. Everybody's doing something. And the women are all doing something and the kids are all doing something. Everybody's involved.
Yeah. I couldn't help but think of A Colony of Ants when I was watching that scene, right? Of just this kind of automatic activity that serve survival and safety and security as part of a group, which was really fascinating. Even all the little boys are nailing, driving nails into the walls at the low height at one point. I think that is reflective of the movie in general. I think the movie moves at a very leisurely pace, but didn't feel slow to me, right? So Weir has a great ability to linger on things, right? To kind of capture movement and stillness at the same time, like the blowing of the wheat fields as he's panning across them. These pans that go across the field and to the barn and house, and so everything is just moving almost out of time, right? Which is kind of what the deal is with the Amish. They're kind of out of time in this way. So all of that seemed very preserving to me as well.
The movie, in many ways, subverts action and cop movie tropes. And that's part of why it was confusing to me when I saw this as an 11 or 12-year-old or however old I was. Because this is Indiana Jones in a movie with good guys and bad guys and guns, very little violence.
Yeah.
And there's some, and when there is some, it isn't there to give the men in the audience a hard-on.
Yeah.
It's horrible, and you don't want it to happen. And like I said, the resolution comes from him scolding rather than him beating the shit out of the cop.
Yeah.
He gets a gunshot, and it takes him days to recover, as opposed to what happens to Indiana Jones or Han Solo, which is they'll get shot and just kind of, they suffer, like Harrison Ford. That's kind of one of his things. Indiana Jones gets the shit beat out of him, but he rallies back and fights and triumphs and keeps on with the adventure. Whereas John Book needs to lie in bed delirious for days with it being uncertain if he'll recover at all.
Yeah. More preserving stuff related to that, the old folk remedies, right? The guy's got a gunshot wound and they're treating him with a poultice and tea, kind of thing. So there's, let's see, what else was preserving? I had a number of notes here. So there's the pace of the movie. There's the simplicity of the toy that you talked about. There's the plainness of the clothes, right? Again, for the preserving domain, or for people with a preserving bias, the transmitting domain is a zone of indifference, right? I don't want to be the peacock. And this is clear there. Like you said earlier, being plain is a compliment, which is part of that. The boy's mesmerized by the fountain, the water fountain at 30th Street Station. She's canning peaches. The whole thing with the spring water and the water wheel providing water into the house, the cow milking, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, the whole barn raising thing. There's just huge amounts of preserving stuff here.
There's that massive breakfast that they eat once Book is woken up at 4:30 for his first cow milking session. So Rachel just lays out this huge spread, and he says he's not used to eating in the middle of the night. There's a little bit of daylight, so I don't know what time of day it is, 6:30, 7 a.m., and they're having what looks like a lavish dinner to me. And Eli says, "You've never worked hard before. Hard work makes you hungry." But it's like, Rachel knows how to cook.
Yeah.
It's all simple, basic Americana kind of food, but it looks pretty damn good. And I'm saying this as a vegan.
Well, that's the thing about that area. It's famous for, or at least it used to be famous for, family-style restaurants, right? Where everybody goes in. It's this big sort of cafeteria-style thing, and you sit at tables with other families, right? People that you don't know. They just kind of get piled in there, and then they bring you these big communal dishes, right? So if you order, say, green beans or something, they bring you enough green beans for a family, and everybody shares. And it's that... I remember going as a kid and thinking, what the heck is that? I mean, why I got to eat with these people? I don't even know. Why I got to share my chicken and all this sort of stuff. It freaked me out. But again, it captures that tradition, right? That feeling of sharing in a way that just strikes me as very preserving. Everything about it is preserving one, right? Like we said before, you really can't take these things apart from each other, especially in this movie. I think you could just take this movie, slap a label on it that says preserving one, and pretty much everything you're looking at speaks to it. Okay? An important thing to understand about the preserving one is that their biggest fear is that they're going to make a mistake that will jeopardize their well-being, their resources, that they'll be wasteful or squander things in a way that will bring embarrassment on them or cause the people they care about to suffer. And again, that's kind of what the whole Amish ethos is of just, no, we have these codes that we follow because it's good for everyone else. Anything else on one or preserving before we move on to our what if this was a navigating one category?
I would say just the unconsummated attraction between Rachel and Book seemed very preserving one. Of like, they're clearly attracted to each other. And they do make some moves. We see them kiss at one point. And they both are able to restrain themselves and go their separate ways.
Yeah, I watched, the second time I was watching it this time, I've seen it numerous times before, when they have that run across the field embrace and kind of swallow each other's innards, sort of kissing scene there. They then kind of cut to the next day, right? So I was curious, did these two consummate here or what? I don't know. So it's, I guess, an unanswerable question in that regard.
The impression I got was not.
Yeah, probably. Let's see what else here. All right, so
I'm curious what you guys thought about the ending. So they say goodbye. He gets in his car and he drives away. And obviously it's very symbolic. As he's driving down the road, Daniel is walking down the road towards their farm.
Yeah.
So clearly it's implying he's leaving and Daniel is arriving.
Yeah.
And I wrote, wow. Like, so many movies would, finagle to have them end up together in the end. And I think it probably is a preserving one deal. It's practical. We live in two different worlds. I'm not from I'm not going to live on this farm with you forever. You're certainly not going to take your son to what are you going to move to Philadelphia with me? That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's like we have this thing between us, but we both kind of know we had a good run and this is it. And they make the hard choice and he leaves and that's it.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's the way I would certainly see it as well. It was just, okay, we were stuck in this moment of time with these extreme circumstances. Now that these extreme circumstances are resolved, we're faced with reality, right? And let's make mature, adult, rational decisions here. And hey, it's been fun, but I'll see you around, kind of thing. So, TJ and Dawe, anything on that?
Well, that's there's an element of navigating in this movie as much as we've been talking about preserving. Any fish out of water story involves navigating. And there's two versions of that. And this one is someone that we relate to goes into an environment that's new to us. And we see that through their eyes. So just a few other examples of that. Lost in Translation or Back to the Future or The Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of talk about how Book and Rachel are from different worlds.
Yeah.
And there's a great understanding of that. And the cultural differences come up in a number of different ways, like, things we've already talked about. Book attacking the bullies when they're in town, or just how off-putting it is for him to have to be woken up at 4:30 a.m. to milk a cow, the massive breakfast they have at 6:30, when he jokingly references a coffee commercial while they're having breakfast. To people who have clearly not only never seen that commercial, but probably don't know what a commercial is.
Right.
So there's just this total blankness in the response as he explains just what he did. It's just this nice goofball moment.
Yeah.
But the ending of the two of them, I thought, was navigating as much as it was preserving in terms of just understanding. Like we've been saying, we're from different worlds. If one of us was to try and live permanently in the other's world, they would always be an outsider.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work. So it's better that we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, it was every so often you'll see that in a movie where people, again, there's that line in Speed, at the end where they talk about relationships starting under extreme circumstances and usually don't work out, or kind of thing. And every so often a movie gets it right and has a movie like an ending like this. But usually you're right, TJ. They're going to figure out some way to make it a happy ever after story. And it was nice that they didn't do that, and they set it up, I think, that you realize, okay, she's going to go and have a decent life with Daniel. I mean, he's not awful. So, and it was funny how he doesn't even stop. Book stops the car, and Daniel just kind of tips his hat and just keeps walking on past him. Right?
And in that moment, I thought, oh, are they going to do like he sees Daniel, he realizes, no, I have to go back. The car stopped. He's going to turn around. Nope, he keeps going. And the credits roll.
Yeah. A couple of things we'll move on and get to the other thing. I just need to point out how. So first of all, I read somewhere that Akira Kurosawa said this was one of his favorite movies. Okay, which is pretty darn high praise, and I could see the Kurosawa influence in this movie. Okay, again with some of these shots of the wheat fields and stuff, made me think of Kurosawa's Dreams and the Van Gogh section, and just so many other places where Kurosawa lingers over the battlefields and these sort of things. Also, there was some, I could see some LA Confidential in this too, right? I mean, which came much later, probably 10 years after. But there's the whole idea of going to the higher ranking police officer and revealing this whole thing to him, like Kevin, who was it? Kevin Spacey did it to James Cromwell. No, it was Guy Pearce. I don't remember. One of them went to him and kind of told him the whole story. And then even the ending was very similar to the final shootout in L.A. Confidential. Okay, so the police chief in this movie was kind of the analog of the James Cromwell character in L.A. Confidential. And there's even this scene where they're loading up the shotguns, before they walk down the road. They stop their car at the top of the hill, load up the shotguns, walk down. So I'd be very curious to see if L.A. Confidential, either copied this or, was doing homage or something. So anyway, just interesting overlap for me.
Well, it's something that I noticed. The final confrontation with Schaefer does not include the extra beat that happens in both Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, where the bad guy seems to have been taken care of, but suddenly he got a gun, and suddenly the hero has to execute him on the spot, and we all feel the righteous joy that evil has been punished. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Due process is important.
Yeah, good. So you touched on the navigating piece of this, but what if these were navigating? I don't know. What would this have looked like as a navigating one? Anybody?
I think a navigating one probably would have had more allies in the Philadelphia police force, or maybe even connections to other law enforcement agencies. So it wouldn't just be a one-man operation to bring down this corruption.
Yeah, and the whole, I don't know, preserving one aspect of the Amish. There's just no way to replace that with the, with the navigating one energy. I just don't see how it could happen. Also with the transmitting one, Book. There are ways. I don't know. He would have been a much more severe character, right? More Javert than what he is in this movie. So I just I don't see it. He would have been much more rule bound, I think, in my experience of transmitting ones, that in a way that I don't know, just wouldn't have worked to me. But I don't know. Any thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, there's a softness to him that a transmitting one probably wouldn't have as much.
Yeah. No, excellent point. It's a good way to put it.
I think it's also possible that a transmitting one would have consummated things with Rachel. That attraction's that strong. Yeah. There could have been that lapse in good behavior.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I love that scene between them, putting the obvious reasons aside, when she's bathing after the barn raising, that just the moment between them, he's watching her, she knows he's watching, she turns around, they're facing each other. It's like the sense I got in that moment is that she's essentially saying to him, like, I'm here if you want me. It's okay. She's inviting him in. You know, he sheepishly looks down. He's like thinking about it. And then he sort of, with his eyes, he's saying to her, I'm so sorry. We can't. And he leaves. And then she turns back around, and it's like she accepts what he's doing. But yeah, I don't know what a transmitter be able to resist. That would be tough. I mean, that's willpower. We'll say that.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Let's see. Other characters in the movie. Was there anybody here who was not a one?
So would you say you think Rachel's a pretty one-ish character?
You know, I went back and forth with her. I wondered, could she have been a 9 who just, was Amish or something? But I don't, it was hard to see anything but 1 for me.
I had the exact same experience. At first, there's a certain softness to her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's also a righteousness to her.
Yeah.
Like certainly in the scenes in Philadelphia, when she does not want to be there, she's not happy to be under the command of John Book. She's not afraid to tell him off.
Yeah.
Always does so respectfully. And if I imagine Katharine Hepburn playing that role across from Gregory Peck, that would fit just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. There was also a willingness to make a point, right? She gets the lecture about being ostracized from Eli, and then they're at the barn raising, and she serves him first, the iced tea, right? She goes around this table and serves him first, and everybody sees her doing it, and she knows everybody sees her doing it, and she knows they're talking about her, but she's saying, hey, I make my own decisions here, kind of thing. So there is that kind of stiff-spined one-ishness that, I think was
same with
more
when,
1 than 9.
When Eli catches them dancing.
Yeah.
He lectures her, and she holds her ground.
Yeah.
And insists, I have not committed sin.
Yeah. I might be able to be persuaded that she was a navigating 1, which might have explained some of the softer quality, I guess. But again, it's hard to see that given the scope of this movie being so preserving and so Amish oriented.
One thing on the Kelly McGillis performance that I noticed, that the accent kind of slipped in and out at different times. And actually, I thought it was ironic that in the Philadelphia scenes, she has much more of the German accent. And when they go back to the farm, she just sounds like a regular English girl.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good. Any other characters stand out regarding Enneagram
I
type?
thought Samuel could be a navigating 9.
Interesting.
I mean, he's a little kid.
Yeah.
But he does a lot of noticing. I mean, it's kind of the reverse of the fish out of water thing I was describing when he's in the train station and just like fascinated by a water fountain or by the statue and that kind of thing. But he's pretty quiet. He's pretty gentle. He doesn't seem to exhibit too much feeling whatsoever, even when he's in mortal danger.
Yeah.
What a great performance. And that he was another, I didn't know his name, but as soon as I saw his face, I said, is that guy? And, I Googled the name and figured out it's the ears mostly, I think, is the giveaway. But just, man, what an incredible performance.
It really was, and it was much noted at the time, and it's one of the more famous child performances. And he struggled as an actor. I think he ended up, I think he's still acting. I'm not sure, but he kind of struggled to make that transition from childhood actor to adult actor. A lot of it was he was just a hell of a cute kid, I mean, and cute kids don't always grow up to be
cute adults.
Start looking, yeah. So, all right. Let's have some examples of other preserving ones in movies.
One quick thing, just want to mention Eli, the patriarch, very much a preserving 1.
Yeah.
Daniel, I wondered if he could be a navigating 9.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm.
He's pretty, he's very aware that John Book is a competition with him for Rachel. And, when they're going to the barn raising, he says, "Your hole is better now," referring to his gunshot wound. Yeah, it's pretty much healed. Good, then you can go home. And he says this, but in a pretty gentle way. Like, he just says it conversationally. And then when he sees Book holding his own as part of the barn raising, he gives him his glass of lemonade and then accepts it back. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like a one wouldn't do either of those things.
Yeah.
But he didn't seem quite as righteous as Eli, for instance.
Right. And he did seem to be on the make, for sure. Right. So, again, not something we would associate with preserving quite as blatantly. So,
out of curiosity, if there were to be such a thing as a transmitting 7 Amish person, and it wasn't done as a vehicle for like a Chris Farley movie or that kind of thing, like if it was played straight, what would that look like?
Well, it's really an interesting idea. I think that again, if the individual, because I'm sure there are. I mean, there have to be transmitting, 7 Amish people, unless it's bred out of them or something. I don't know, but no, I think they would just be highly energetic and happy and upbeat and friendly and all of these things. So it would be that Amish guy who's still very much an Amish guy, but just talks a lot, and is always smiling, So, I don't think, again, I don't think that they would have a need to, take a forever Rumspringa or something, I think they would, just be an Amish person who looks like a transmitting 7, probably. But, I guess everything's in perspective, right? I mean, because I look at that life and think, oh my goodness, how boring would that be, right? But you would.
I watched this movie and I thought, sign me up today, man. If I didn't have kids, I'm only mostly joking. I mean, there's a big part of me that is very drawn to that lifestyle.
Wow, that's weird.
Well, because they got Kelly McGillis up there, so I mean, how bad can it be?
Well, there you go. All right.
There's that scene early on when Rachel and Samuel are waiting at the train station, and Daniel gives Samuel a toy that he's made, which is a little piece of wood carved and painted to look like a sheep. Samuel is thrilled. This is a great toy that I've just received. And that's just an interesting bit as an audience member of like, those are your standards for what a fun toy is, huh? Wow. Cool. Like, that joy is genuine. Same with when they see Daniel on his carriage as they're riding their train, and his horse is galloping and he's standing up and they're smiling and laughing over like, look at that. Like, that's a real thrill.
Yeah. It's perspective, right? It's what we're used to, and, comparisons and all of that. So, look, when I was a kid, people, Pong was a huge, look at this, man. You can do this on TV. It's like playing ping pong, and now my kids would be like, what, are you kidding me? Right? So, all right, other preserving ones in movies. Who's got some examples?
Ebenezer Scrooge.
Okay.
There's an episode we did before, Catherine Zeta-Jones's character in No Reservations. Mm-hmm. There's an Amazon Prime TV series that's not that well known that I love called One Mississippi by Tig Notaro. Mm-hmm. And the father-in-law character, Bill, in that is a beautiful preserving one. I've got Babette in Babette's Feast, Sybil on Faulty Towers, Felix on the TV show The Odd Couple, Jake Van Dorn, which is George C. Scott in the movie Hardcore, where he's from northern Michigan Calvinists. And he finds out that his daughter is living in L.A. and acting in porno movies, and he sets out to go rescue her.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure on this, but I'm leaning towards Gustavo Fring on Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad.
I think so.
And then my favorite preserving one of all is Uwe in A Man Called Uwe, both the Swedish movie and the novel. I haven't seen A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks, but I love that novel, and it just, like, it's preserving one on every single page. It's told from his point of view, and he's incredibly handy, and he's so faithful to Volvo as a brand of car and cannot stomach anybody driving a Saab, and has ended friendships over exactly that. It's just a wonderful book and wonderful movie.
All right, great. TJ Ingrassia, any from you?
I think that covers it for me. It's been a while since I've seen, I could just spitball a few ones that we haven't talked about. I haven't seen Game of Thrones in quite a while. Would Ned Stark be a preserving one, or I don't think he'd be transmitting?
Navigating is my guess.
I think so, yeah.
That seems right, yeah.
Go ahead. Was there more?
No, that's it.
Oh, okay. I've got a couple that we haven't talked about. I think we could put Dr. Richard Kimball in there from The Fugitive. I think the skipper, played by Albert Hall in Apocalypse Now, was probably a preserving one. Let's see who else. I had Gustavo Fring as well, and Cedric Daniels from The Wire. I would say is probably a preserving one as well.
And what preserving do you see in there? My guess would have been navigating, but I'm interested.
He just had. Well, no, what you know? What I think I might revise that. I see in him this persnicketyness almost, right? I mean, there is such a purity to him, but I think the character's behaviors and the character arc and all that stuff probably is more navigating. So I think that's a good call on your part. So, maybe Anthony Hopkins in Remains of the Day, the butler character. So. All right. Any final words on Preserving One and the movie Witness?
If you haven't seen it, see it.
Yeah.
Great flick. Not one that gets referenced that often anymore, but what a joy to rewatch.
Yeah, it doesn't. I would agree. I think this is a wonderful movie. Again, like you said, not one of those things that gets talked about a lot. Like a lot of Peter Weir. We've talked about some Peter Weir things. Did we ever do Master and Commander?
Yeah,
we
and
did.
Fearless.
I thought so.
This is our third
and
Peter Weir
Fearless
movie.
as well. Right. So, and I would love to do Green Card someday, which was actually Peter Weir's attempt to popularize Gerard Depardieu in the United States. That was going well until Depardieu said, "Oh yeah, I've committed rapes multiple times," in the press junket, and that sort of wrapped up his U.S. career. So clearly not a one from Gerard Depardieu. So. All right, guys. Hey, good stuff. TJ, you sent this, cartoon of different kinds of podcasts, and one of them was movie discussion podcasts that are longer than the movie itself. We got pretty darn close to that today, so I'm feeling a little self-conscious, but this was a great conversation. So, thanks. We'll see you next time.